really nice last week?
Yep.
Last week, when we actually heard from so many of you who were here about what you were doing in your dissertation and your research design. So I really feel that, I'm very aware of these starring dissertations in process. So that's good. So yes, in a way, this workshop is covering quite a lot of ground, but I've put the final chapters all together because somehow it's partly to do with the sort of framework that I want to talk through those chapters with you with, but also sometimes because once you've got your data and you've done your methodology, it's kind of, you sort of feel a lot of the effort of the research is over. And so the writing up seems to be, oh, well, it'll just follow. But actually, we need to think quite carefully about how to write up our results and what the difference is between writing up results and the discussion. And the conclusion sort of fits in with all of that as well. So that is why I'm looking at all 3 chapters together. So of course by next week you'll have finished another 3 chapters, I hope. Yes? Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is first of all just talk a little bit with you, share a little bit with you some ideas about what the importance and what the challenges are of these final chapters. And then what are these chapters? What do they contain? What are they supposed to look like? And then we'll look at the results and discussion, and we'll look at conclusion chapters, and then we'll look at an example. It's not a dissertation this time. I thought that there probably was no budget left in the college coffers, the amount of paper that I've given you. So although it's not a dissertation, nevertheless, this journal article, the last sections, illustrate quite nicely some of the issues that we're going to talk about. So we will have an opportunity to look at that and see whether we can find the moves that should take place in these chapters. And somewhere in between there we'll have tea. Okay. All right, so these are 2 takes on the importance of the final chapters, and you'll see the challenges of the final chapters as well. Badenhorst, as a supervisor and an examiner, says how often she's impressed by somebody's dissertation and then it sort of weakens towards the end. Whether it's because we all feel weak towards the end, it may well be. She says they're too tired to think about the ending. I see some nods. Yes. And Swales and Freak say the same sort of thing, a lack of creative energy, shortage of time, because the end of November is hurrying on. So we tend to want to rush through the last bits and pieces. But, to counter this, it's really important that you don't let yourself down and don't let your reader down by sort of having a weak ending to your dissertation. This is really where you've got to kind of pull it all together and make claims about what you've achieved and the significance of what you've done. And that is really important because, the master's dissertation, they are requiring that you add value to the field. If you're doing a doctoral dissertation, they're looking for new knowledge. Nobody quite knows what new knowledge means, but anyway, they're looking for new knowledge. So these are the chapters where you make your mark, as it were, for what you've actually achieved. What are your findings? How do you relate them to the literature, to theory, to all these things, and what contribution have you made? So these are really crucial chapters. All right, now I'm going to share with you a really nice framework, I think, which various sources use this, so I'm not quite sure where it comes from originally, but Swales, for example, talks about making various swoops, sort of various swoops across your data. And this translates into chapters. So the first thing that you would be looking at is close findings. You remember last time we talked about the methodology, and we said that by the time your reader had read the methodology chapter, they knew exactly how you had gathered your data. So they understood how your results were arrived at. So the first thing that you need to do is to talk about what have you found. So these close findings emerge directly from your data, and they relate to your analysis. Okay. But you're still needing to build up an argument. All right, I've argued for argument every workshop. The word argument has come in. We talked with the methodology that you needed to argue. Same sort of thing here. You build up an argument by ordering your data. You don't just sort of splat, here's all the stuff that I've discovered. Partly because you've discovered, perhaps, a multitude of things. Data is huge, all right? So you need to order that data. That's the first thing. You need to use tables and figures to order your data. That would be very characteristic of this chapter. And you need to link those with the text in order to highlight what you're finding in your tables and figures. So Partridge and Starfield said the writer must draw out the significance of data, highlight significant trends and comparisons, and keep indicating to the reader where in the data he or she is being led. So just think about it. You found out an inordinate amount of stuff. Now you have to help your reader to see what it's all about. You need to order it, you need to present it, you need to comment on it, and show what its significance is. Okay. So the close findings, my numbering is not working out here, is really your results chapter. So your close findings are the results chapter. You are taking your data and you are organizing it and presenting it to the reader. Then you sweep over your data again, according to Swales, and you look at broad findings. You look at your findings more broadly, and this would be your discussion chapter. So what's the difference then between results and discussion? It's exactly what this seems to suggest. It's a much broader take. It's a more abstract, generalized discussion. And very importantly, it makes links. It explains why your results are meaningful. It makes links with previous chapters. It makes links with your initial problem. It makes links with the aim and overall objectives of the dissertation. It makes links with your research questions, and it links with the theoretical and conceptual framework. So you're likely to refer to the research literature, and you're going to comment on your key findings. So it's again an argument, and it's linked, it's focusing on the significance of your results. All right, then the next thing that you'll be doing in these final chapters is an evaluation and recommendations. And those two final takes, as it were, will comprise your conclusion. This is why I wanted to look at it all together, because it's really all of a piece. We very often put things in silos and we think this results, discussion, conclusion. But actually we're pulling everything together in a whole process here. So for your evaluation, now you're looking at your entire study through an evaluative lens. And you appraise things, you evaluate things, the methodology, the process of data collection, the analysis, the validity of the data. You could be doing all of that. You reflect on the value of the research and you say what the highlights are and what the significance of the research is. You think about your original research purpose. To what extent have you achieved this purpose? And what's the contribution you're making in your study? So, hopefully you will have a sentence that begins, the key contribution of this study is. Okay. And then very often you will have recommendations or some means of locating the significance of your research in the real world. So in a way, your whole study looks a bit like a champagne glass. Remember when we talked about the introduction and we started general, remember? And then we focused onto our particular problem, the particular research questions. That was like the glass. And then comes the stem, which is the body of the work, where you do all the things that we've been talking about. And then right at the end, you open it up again, as it were. That's the base of the glass. It opens up back to the real world again. So in a way, the conclusion is sort of like an introduction inverted, the other way around. You start very particular to your study and then you move it outwards. So that's the general, I'm going to use the word choreography of the study and the choreography of these chapters. So the close findings, the results, where you're focusing on what has emerged from your data and you're organizing it and highlighting things and showing trends. So you are arguing really from your data about what your results are. Then your broad findings, it's like a broad sweep again over what you've done, which is the discussion, which is more abstract, more generalized, focusing on the significance really of your results. Then the last two, the evaluation recommendation would be what you would include in your conclusion. All right, so what I'm going to do is have a look at results and discussion, and then I'll look at the conclusion a little bit separately from that, because it's, the evaluation and the recommendation, we're looking at things through a different sort of lens. But before we do this, what I want you to do is work in a group with two or one other person with you. I want you to think about this statement. Data is not information. Information is not knowledge, and knowledge is not wisdom. Okay. It comes from sort of really, I suppose, the field of knowledge management. It's quite a well-known little dictum, as it were. Quite interesting because I've seen it used without any attribution at all, and it was quite difficult to find out where it came from, because I sort of felt I better be a very good role model and give an attribution for anything that I'm quoting. But I uncovered quite an interesting little story about it all. But anyway, there it is. It's got the attribution tick. I've done that. So what I really want to do is for you to talk in your group with your partner or two partners. What does this mean? what's the difference between data, information, knowledge, and wisdom? And how might this be relevant to you in terms of your dissertation? Now we're really getting philosophical about this. Okay, I'm going to give you 3 minutes just to try and teasel this out and see what you think.
Yeah, that sounds funny.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I suppose, just the data, it hasn't been ordered another kind of looks at information because there's some sort of ordering of knowledge and wisdom. That's another big trick because I think then would be now linking it back to perhaps theoretical framework, putting it into context. Wisdom sounds safe in a way that I sort of take it. I think on the broad, it actually fits quite nicely. Yeah, and in fact it does tie in quite nicely with that whole field. And ordered and put in tables and figures and that stuff. Yes.
Knowledge is
Yes, absolutely right. I haven't read it. Absolutely right. And then when you're starting to talk about knowledge, I suppose in a way, starting to evaluate. Yes. What's the difference between knowledge and wisdom? I'm wondering.
what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
I'm sure you it's a
maybe that's right. I can see that sense of it.
absolutely. And I was thinking something where you put what's into their table. There's an element of order, although sometimes it's just order. And then it's almost like just step back and just which not so much the table because I'm aware of it. If I write something especially in other fields about making a strong claim, I'll kind of present something and in the conclusion I won't sort of say, therefore
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt what are obviously some very interesting conversations. I had a very nice comment from one of the groups who said, there's something missing here. I said, what's missing? Understanding. So I don't know whether you talked about understanding in your discussions. Is there a difference between data, information, knowledge, wisdom? It sounds as if it's a nice sort of hierarchy, doesn't it? Would you agree that there's a difference?
Yes.
And how would this be relevant to your research writing? Anybody like to share what their group said? You guys have got something to say, I'm sure.
May I just suggest that everyone just lifts this little fellow up here, and then when you do want to speak, you just press the button so that the little light comes on. Otherwise, it won't be picked up on the recording. Do you want to? I think.
Yeah, okay. So we try to relate the progression here to the framework that Caroline presented us with, and so we saw the data as just unordered, not information, but unordered bits of evidence or what you've obtained from your study, and working with that, ordering it, putting it into tables, comparing, finding relationships. We thought that was perhaps the information that's being drawn from the data, and then working with that back to the literature, the theoretical frameworks, the whole discussion element would then produce better understanding or knowledge, as has been indicated here. And then perhaps relating that back to the real world might be where we are displaying some wisdom, what the implications, what the significance of the findings are for practice, for theory, etc. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Anybody have anything to add to that? How would you fit understanding into this framework? Your group there that was thinking about understanding. Now I'm putting you on the spot, sorry.
No, I just remembered, it's something from spirituality that knowledge is nothing without understanding.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can have all the information in presence, but if you cannot separate it according to the information you're looking for and understand the direction of your research, then you're going to be a little lost.
So